Hi, I'm Jess, and welcome to my channel. I'm working on a series where I review folktale retellings, and I'd be remiss if I didn't review the book that started my love for retellings, Ella Enchanted by Gail, Carson, Levine. Okay, so technically Ella Enchanted isn't what started my love for folktale retellings. It was Confessions of an Ugly Stepsister. The movie, not the book. I didn't read the book until I was in my teens, but Ella Enchanted was the first book I read that was a fairy tale retelling, and this is a booktube channel, so movies don't count. Is it weird that the first two pieces of media that got me interested in retellings are both Cinderella retellings? The actual first folktale retelling I ever encountered was actually the 1991 movie The Polar Bear King, which is a retelling of the Norwegian fairy tale East of the Sun, West of the Moon, but I didn't know that until relatively recently, so I don't count it as influencing my love for fairy tale retellings. But we've gotten off topic. We're here to talk about Ella Enchanted. This video will contain spoilers. If you don't want spoilers, perhaps you can watch this video instead, where I talk about a middle grade series and its strange reasons for existing. When Ella was born, the fairy Lucinda gave her the gift of obedience. Only Lucinda thought it was a gift. Ella's mother, Lady Eleanor, and their cook, Mandy, who's also Ella's fairy godmother, knew it was really a curse. Ella first became aware of her curse on her 5th birthday, when she was told to eat her cake and she couldn't stop eating, until her mother noticed her crying and told her to stop. When Ella was 8, she realized that people would take advantage of her curse, if they knew about it. She told her best friend about the curse, and her friend spent the next hour ordering Ella around, until Ella punched her. After that, Ella's mother ordered her not to tell anyone about the curse. When Ella was 15, she and her mother got sick. She recovered quickly, but her mother didn't. At her mother's funeral, Ella meets Prince Charmant, or Char, as he prefers to be called. It's weird that Ella and Char have never met before. Char knew Ella's mother and liked her. Lady Eleanor was friends with the king and queen, and the palace is within walking distance of Ella's house. You'd think that given her social class and her mother's friendship with the king and queen, that Ella would have been considered a good playmate for the young prince and his sister, who is the same age as Ella. I actually think the rest of the book would make more sense if Ella and Char had a pre-existing relationship. After the funeral, Ella meets Dame Olga and her daughters, Hattie and Olive. Dame Olga is described as a tall, plump lady with long and wavy honey-colored tresses. Her face was a pasty white with twin spots of rouge on the cheeks. In other words, she's fat and ugly and wears too much makeup. It would be nice if authors would stop using fat and ugly as shorthand for bad guy. Ella also gets super judgmental about how much Hattie and Olive eat. A giant couldn't eat half a leg of deer plus a huge mound of wild rice and 8 of the 50 quail eggs and go back for desserts, but Hattie could. Olive ate even more. Because you see, they're gluttonous and therefore bad people. You wouldn't want young girls to think that it's okay to honor their hunger cues and eat until they're full. Rereading books from your childhood is wild because I would never have noticed how judgmental Ella was, because 90s and 2000s diet culture really pushed this idea that eating too much made you a bad person. Yes, Hattie and Olive are bad people, but not because they were hungry and ate food that was offered to them. I know this is a middle grade book, and middle grade books are pretty heavy-handed with differentiating the bad guys from the good guys. I'm just saying that there are ways to do that without relying on stereotypes based on physical appearance. Like Hattie or Olive could have stuck her tongue out at Ella when no one was looking, and when they are alone together, maybe Hattie could pull Ella's hair or close the door in Ella's face or something. Having Hattie act mean would have been a more effective way of showing that she's going to be the villain than having her look like every other villain. Sir Peter, Ella's father, decides to send Ella to finishing school with Hattie and Olive. The day before she leaves, Ella decides to say goodbye to her favorite place, the menagerie just outside the palace walls. There she runs into Char. Which brings me back to my previous point. How did they not meet before Ella's mother's funeral? They've now met twice in only a few days. I struggle to believe that in 15 years they've never met before. Char accompanies Ella as she says goodbye to all the animals. As they near the ogre hut, they hear a baby gnome in distress. The baby gnome is sitting right under the window of the ogre's hut. An ogre could easily reach out the window and snatch them. Char acts quickly and picks up the baby gnome and hands them to Ella. When the ogre sees Ella, he starts laughing and orders her to bring the baby to him. Ogres have the ability to persuade people with their voice, but in Ella's case, they don't have to try. She'll obey them without any persuasion. Ella tries to break the curse, but she can't, and she moves towards the ogre until Char orders her to stop. The guard forces the ogre to retreat deeper into the hut, and Ella and Char bring the baby gnome back to their family. It's unsettling that there are ogres on display at the menagerie. In this world, ogres are intelligent creatures, at least as intelligent as humans. Keeping some locked in a hut for tourists to gawk at seems cruel. Yes, ogres eat humans, but that doesn't make it okay to lock them up like animals in a zoo. Ella leaves for finishing school with Hattie and Olive. It doesn't take long for Hattie to figure out that Ella has to obey her orders. She makes Ella into her servant on the trip. She orders Ella to give her necklace and prevents Ella from eating anything until they reach the school. They arrive at finishing school just after lunch and go straight to sewing class, where they learn embroidery. Ella has no idea how to sew. She befriends Arita, a girl from the neighboring kingdom of Aortha. Arita starts teaching Ella Aorthaian, and they forget about the embroidery they are supposed to be doing. When sewing mistress notices that Ella has only managed to sew 3 uneven stitches, she sends Ella to bed without supper. Ella's curse of obedience means that she has learned to be rebellious. So when she's sent to bed without supper, she announces that she's not even hungry. Sewing mistress then extends the punishment to include no breakfast the next day. Ella quickly improves at all of her classes at finishing school, except penmanship. Orders from the mistresses guided her towards perfection, and it quickly became second nature. Writing mistress was the only one who never gave orders, so Ella's penmanship did not improve. I don't like how easy it was for Ella to just improve. Like, sure, some things being guided towards how to do it properly, something like the comportment classes, like learning which forks to use at dinner. Once you learn that, that's easy to implement. But other things, like, you're just going to be bad at no matter what. So Ella mastering everything in the span of 2 months just isn't realistic and makes her too perfect of a character. Ella's friendship with Arita also grew. After about 2 months, Hattie orders Ella to stop being friends with Arita. Ella doesn't want to hurt Arita's feelings, so she decides to run away from school. Before she left, Mandy gifted her a fairy book. That night, the fairy book shows her a letter from her father, saying he will be attending a giant's wedding soon, in the hopes that there will be fairies there. Ella decides to go to the wedding too. Maybe Lucinda will be there, and she can convince her to undo the blessing she gave Ella at her birth. Before she leaves, she decides to get revenge on Hattie, and figures out that Hattie and Dame Olga wear wigs. So she sneaks into Hattie's room and steals her wig. In town, she trades the wig for some bread at the bakery. Ella travels on foot for days. At the rate she's going, she'll never reach the giants in time for the wedding. She finally reaches the elves' wood after she runs out of food. She talks with the elf chief trader, Slannon, and shows him her fairy book. In the morning, Slannon asks her to show the book to the other elves. They are very impressed, and as a thank you for providing them with entertainment, he shows her 3 pieces of pottery by a famous elf potter. Ella's father has mentioned that potter before. He hoped that the elves would someday trade him some of his works. Ella is amazed by the beautiful pottery, especially the saddle cup shaped like a wolf howling. Slannon offers it to her as a gift because she loves it so much. The elves also give her food for her journey and lend her a pony. The next morning, Ella is woken by a group of ogres. They are fighting over who gets to eat her. They decide to take her with them in hopes that they'll capture other people and be able to have a proper meal. That night, as the ogres sleep, Ella tries to escape, but she's been ordered not to, and she still can't break her curse. She eventually gives up on escaping and decides to practice talking in the persuasive way the ogres do. In the morning, the ogres decide to eat her and divvy up her parts. She uses the persuasion she practiced to get them to go to sleep. As she's trying to decide what to do next, a group of knights rides up, led by Char. With Ella's help, they tie up and gag the ogres. Ella tells Char that she ran away from finishing school and is on her way to the giants for a wedding. Char sends one of his knights to accompany Ella on the rest of her journey. Ella makes it to the giants just in time for the wedding. At the wedding, Ella spots 3 fairies. One of them is Lucinda. Lucinda gifts the bride and groom the gift of never being apart. Ella overhears the other 2 fairies scolding Lucinda, and Ella decides it would be best if she doesn't directly ask Lucinda to remove her curse, because Lucinda tends to turn people into squirrels when they're not happy with her gifts. Lucinda tells Ella that obedience is a great gift and orders her to be happy about obeying. Ella finds her father and they go home together. Sir Peter tells Ella that he made a bad deal and they are broke. Ella will have to marry a rich man so they can regain their fortune. Ella is so happy that her father is ordering her to marry. The man her father chooses is Edmund, Earl of Warwick. Ella knows his niece from finishing school. She's friends with Hattie. Sir Peter invites the Earl over for dinner the following night. He orders Mandy to serve elf mushrooms. The mushrooms make the eater like everyone around them. Ella ends up being the only one to eat them. Their effects make her wonder why she ever thought that the Earl was an old man. He's older than her father. She even feels fondness for her father. After dinner, Ella sits near Edmund and embroiders while the men talk. Edmund has praised her small stitches before, so she tries to make her stitches so small they are invisible. This feels like it was written by someone who doesn't embroider. To be fair, I don't embroider either, but I know that embroidery is a decorative form of stitching. The whole point is that the stitches are visible. Imagine if I drew a picture and said, "Look how thin my lines are, you can't even see them." It's a polar bear eating a marshmallow in a snowstorm. If Ella had been, say, hemming a handkerchief, then tiny invisible stitches would make sense. Now I'm wondering how bad the description of embroidery is in The Two Princesses of Weimar. Embroidery is actually a major plot device in that book. Back to Ella. That night, Mandy realizes that Lucinda didn't give Ella a new gift, just an order, so Mandy orders Ella to not be happy about obeying orders, to feel however she wants to feel. The next morning, Ella wakes to find a note from her father. She is not to marry the Earl, because he is not rich enough. He lost most of his property in a recent fire. Instead, Sir Peter is the one who will have to marry, and he's on his way to propose to Dame Olga. Sir Peter and Dame Olga marry as soon as Hattie and Olive return from finishing school. Lucinda shows up at the wedding, and gives Sir Peter and Dame Olga the gift of always loving each other. Ella leaves the wedding and hides upstairs, afraid that Lucinda will see her. Lucinda doesn't see her, but Char does, and he follows her. The wedding is held in the old palace, and Char tells Ella that there is rumored to be a secret passage hidden somewhere. They decide to skip the ball and go looking for the passage. They don't find it. Instead, they find an interior garden, and in one of the benches, they find a pair of glass slippers. After all the guests and Lucinda leave, Ella and Char decide to rejoin Ella's family. On the way, they decide to slide down the banister. After the first slide down, they decide to go again. This time, Ella's family walks in, just as Ella reaches the bottom. In the carriage, on the way to Dame Olga's manor, where they will now be living, Sir Peter reveals that he is broke. Dame Olga and her daughters are very upset with this news. The next day, Char tries to visit Ella, but Hattie orders her to stay in her room, so she can't spend time with the prince. Char tries again in the following day, but once again, Ella is sent to her room, and Char is leaving to spend a year in Aortha the next day, so he will not get to say goodbye to Ella. That night, Ella's fairy book shows her an entry from Char's journal. Ella is afraid that Char thinks she was avoiding him when he visited. She decides to write him a letter explaining that she was being punished for skipping the ball and establishes that she would like him to write her while he's away, but to address his letters to Mandy. 3 days after Char leaves for Aortha, Sir Peter leaves to go back to working as a merchant. He prefers to love his wife from afar. Dame Olga immediately moves Ella into a new, much smaller room and puts her to work as a servant. Mandy convinces Dame Olga to let Ella work with her as a scullery maid. Ella writes to her father to tell him that she's being forced to work as a servant, but he doesn't care enough to come home. Ella and Char continue writing to each other. After 6 months, Char confesses that he loves Ella. He writes to her that, "I think I've loved you since we met at your mother's funeral." That's weird. That's really weird. The love at first sight bit is bad enough, but the fact that the first sight happened at her mother's funeral when she was very distraught is super weird. But Ella doesn't think it's weird. She's thrilled because she loves him too. She hasn't loved him for as long, but she loves him now, and that's all that matters. She starts to write him back to tell him how she feels, but her candle burns out, and she has to wait until morning. She falls asleep thinking about how marrying Char will free her from her curse in a way, because she'll be too powerful to give orders to. She wakes up during the night with the realization that her curse could be used to hurt the kingdom, or Char. She tries to think of a way that she can marry him and avoid being given any orders, but she can't. Instead of writing to him to tell him that she loves him, she forges a letter from Hattie telling him that Ella has run off and eloped and is now married to a very rich old man. When Mandy returns from mailing the letter, Ella is weeping. She tells Mandy what she wrote to Char. Mandy tells her that she did the right thing. Mandy takes Ella into a room and tells her to hide behind a curtain. She then calls Lucinda. She tricks Lucinda into spending 3 months as a squirrel and 3 months being obedient. 6 months later, there is to be a series of 3 balls to welcome Char back home. Rumor has it that he's going to pick out his future bride at the balls. Ella hopes that Lucinda will have learned her lesson and will agree to remove her curse in time for the balls. Lucinda has learned her lesson and has sworn off doing big magic, but she won't remove the curse from Ella because that would be big magic. She offers to help Ella with small magic anytime she needs it. Ella still plans to go to the balls, just to see Char one last time. Mandy remakes 3 of her mother's dresses for her to wear. The night of the first ball, icy rain is falling. Ella will be soaked if she tries to walk to the ball in that weather. Mandy won't do anything to help her, so she calls on Lucinda. Lucinda transforms a giant pumpkin into a coach, mice into horses, and rats into footmen, so that Ella can go to the ball. To stop the magic from being too big, she tells Ella that the spell will wear off at midnight. At the ball, Ella sits off to the side and watches Char as he greets his guests. This is weird behavior. She's just sitting there, staring at him like... People must have noticed her staring. When Char is greeting the last guest, Ella decides that she will talk to him and gets in line. She introduces herself as Leela from Bast, a town near the Elves Forest. She keeps Char interested in talking to her by speaking to him in Aorthaean. I don't know how Char didn't recognize her. Masks don't do that good a job at hiding someone's identity. One year for Halloween, I wore a mask, and people I barely knew still recognized me. Char should be able to recognize the girl he loves, even with half her face covered. Anyway, Char and Ella dance together. When he leaves to attend to his other guests, Ella leaves the ball. The next night, Ella plans on just watching Char, but she gets jealous of him dancing 3 times with a yellow-haired wench who made him laugh the night before. Oh cool, girl hate, for absolutely no reason. Ella decides to move to where Char can see her. When he does, he tells her to wait there for him. She waits for 30 minutes before he comes to her. They dance together, and he tells her that his father wants him to sing for the guests the following night. Ella decides to stay late the next night to watch his performance. At the 3rd ball, Char introduces Ella to his parents. Then they dance and talk. As they dance, Hattie snatches off Ella's mask. Her identity revealed, she runs from the ball as the clock strikes midnight. When she makes it home, she tells Mandy what happened. Mandy tells her to pack the bags, that they're leaving and will get jobs as cooks together elsewhere. Just as Ella finishes packing and changes into her maid outfit, there is a commotion at the front door. A maid comes in and tells Ella that the prince wants to see everyone in the household. Ella stands behind the tallest servant, hoping she won't be seen. But Char and his knights walk among the servants. One of his knights pulls her out of the line, and Char recognizes her. He asks her to marry him. Well, actually, he orders her to marry him. After an intense internal struggle, Ella says no. She breaks the curse and is no longer obedient. She no longer has to fear the kingdom's enemies using her curse to harm Char. It is now safe for her to marry him. They get married a month later. Ella's father is unable to attend since he is still away on business. But Arita attends, and she and Ella renew their friendship. Members from each of the kingdom's species attend, except ogres, including the gnome toddler Ella and Char rescued, and they live happily ever after. I feel like I've been unfairly harsh on Ella Enchanted. I kind of have. I'm reviewing it through an adult lens, when it's intended for kids. I've been nitpicking at the few flaws the book has, but overall I think it's a good book for the age group it was written for. I like that Gail, Carson, Levine used a curse to explain why Ella is obedient. The young readers Ella Enchanted is intended for hopefully would not understand the complexities of abuse and how being abused can make someone docile and obedient. The version of Cinderella where she is physically and emotionally abused on page is a lot darker and more suited to an older audience. I also like that the story can lead the readers to understand the importance of autonomy. I think this book can help parents and children have a good discussion about autonomy and how important it is to be free to make your own choices. It's a good lesson for both the kids and the adults in their lives. It's unfortunate that the fat phobia makes it a product of its time. And I really can't get over the ogres on display in the Royal Menagerie. They don't even have a huge field to roam in. They're just locked in a hut. It's pretty messed up. But as a child, it didn't even occur to me that that wasn't okay. Maybe it's best if we don't revisit the media we enjoyed in the past, because nothing is perfect, and as we grow, we're more likely to see the flaws. Did you like Enchanted when you were young? What about the movie? I absolutely hated the movie, because it was nothing like the book. Leave me a comment letting me know. And in case you're wondering, yes, I did realize about halfway through scripting this video, the last book I reviewed also had a main character who is obedient. Hit the like button if you liked the video and consider subscribing if you haven't already. Thanks for watching and have a good rest of your day.